Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's My Games Recruitment Show, where, as you can see, we're going to be talking about how you can get through to decision makers, especially those high value ones who do not want to speak to you because lots of people want to speak to them. So before we get onto that, Mike, though, we do have to just briefly discuss what I'm referring to as a whoopsie. I made a
boo-boo. A boo-boo.
I made a boo-boo, yeah. So for those of you who listen on the podcast, you won't know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who watch on LinkedIn, for some reason, the show got set up accidentally. It's happening on Monday, not today. And so some of you are registered yesterday and have had to re-register. I can only apologise. It's very much
You can't get the staff these days, peeps. You know, you try your best, but you can't get the staff. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we're calling it the whoopsie. I can only apologise.
Hey, look, we've been running this show, for 5 years now or something?
Yeah, 5 years.
And I think we had a previous one where the time was wrong or something. I can't remember, but this is only the second boo-boo, really, 5 years. So I'm going to cut you some slack on that, Kirsty.
Thanks. Sorry, guys. I was in London yesterday panicking. But no, I'm fine. It's fine. We're all here now. We're all here. Okay. So that's dealt with. Thank you for being very patient with us. I do appreciate it. And thank you for everybody's concern about Mrs. Ames' mom. She's doing very much okay after Dad's rather long A&E stop yesterday. But we're all doing okay, aren't we, Dad?
We are, yeah. We're in good shape.
Okay. All right. So as I said, Mike, we are talking about how to reach well-protected and high-value decision makers today. Can you just explain why we're talking about this today?
Okay. 2-3 reasons, really. I think from when I started in recruitment, it was always hard to get high-value clients. You know, loads of clients will give you the odd vacancy here and there, or if they're struggling a bit with their favourite agencies, they'll chuck a bone out or two, but that's not the same as being in the circle with them. And if you want the big money, if you want to see big money, you've got to be in the circle, which means you get a steady stream of vacancies and at least an even chance of being able to deliver against those vacancies, or if you've done your job properly, a better than evens chance, right? You're at the top of the list. That's where it's at. And I'll just say to you, I've got a graph on this, but I didn't bring it to show you. But in the first business that we had, we switched across, changed the way in which we hunted high value clients and the way in which we looked after clients as well. So we went from 0 to 5 million in 5 years. And in the next 5 years, we went from 5 million to 40 million, like that. All because we changed the way in which we hunted clients. Before that, we'd been targeting one-offs, just get a vacancy, work on it. And BD, our idea of BD was getting vacancies. How wrong we were. And it took a lovely consultant called Anne-Marie to sort us out on that. But so the first thing is we've always wanted high-value clients, and they're always difficult to get, right? Okay, that was what we do. The second reason, I think, is that the world is changing dramatically now with the advent of AI. We all know that. And it's changing in ways that you perhaps, I think there's a general belief that people think AI is going to make their lives easier. But what they don't realize, this is an arms race. So the more sophisticated your AIs get to get in front of people and phone people and send people automated messages, the more the defense mechanism of the other side is getting sophisticated. Let me show you something. Can you bring up the screen, Kirst? I don't know whether anybody out there has got an Apple phone. I just upgraded to iOS 26. And in the phone app, you get this now, which is an ask a reason for calling. So essentially, if somebody rings you and they've suppressed their number or their number isn't in your contacts, the machine answers the phone call for you and says, well, what do you want to speak to Michael for? And then you say, and it records that, and then it rings you and it displays what they said. So you can decide whether you take the call or not. Right now, okay, bring it back now, Kirst. This is a thin end of a very thick wedge. Okay, so that in itself, I'm sure there'll be strategies to get around that, notably lying. You know, I don't know how people expect a call to go when they've just lied to somebody. You know, if you just won the prize, actually, can I sell you some double glazing? I don't know how that's going to go down. Not well, I think. But I think that's the thin end of a very thick wedge. Before long, the machine will be having a conversation and you will have told your iOS PA or whatever it's called, the kind of calls you want and the kind of calls that you don't want. And it'll have a conversation. If it thinks that you don't want it, it'll either send you a message and cut the call, or it'll seek further clarification, I suppose. But the point is that this is the way the world's going. The same goes for email now. AIs are taking a really big part in figuring out whether an email is junk or not. So you've got machine learning models that are actually reading the context. They're not reading the actual email per se, but they're reading the context of the email. And they're comparing that with literally millions and millions of examples of safe and unsafe emails to find a pattern. And they're doing it instantly. You've got natural language processing, NLP, which again is reading these things and trying to figure out the tone and the context of the email. These things are going to get more and more and more complex and powerful. Same goes for the call. So it's okay you having an AI that can ring round candidates or clients and have a conversation with them. But if all your AI does you speak to somebody else's AI, that's going to get into a bit of a muddle. So we need to sweep all of that away, because I think it's a losing direction.
So essentially, there's been a technology revolution around sales, both in the offense and the defense. So what would have worked even 2-3 years ago, now we are coming up against bombardments of defense, big militarized brick walls with steel gates and big gunners, so that we can't get through. So we have to come up with imaginative and new ways to get to those people, because we still need to speak to them in order to do business with the people that we want.
Well, what we have to do is essentially we're going to change the dialogue from "can I sell to you" to "can I add value to you." That's at the essence, and I'm going to explain what that means, and I'm going to kind of go much deeper into it. But the "can I sell to you" is going to be, I think, isolated and rejected. What we're seeing now is the beginning of the end of cold calling. So that 40 calls a day nonsense, I don't think so. I don't really think so. That's not going to fly. I mean, do it if you want. Can't do any harm. Burns a lot of time, but not really for me. So I think that what we sorry, you took that down.
That off, yeah, you just
I'm sorry.
You're not allowed. Mike's pressing buttons he shouldn't. You're not allowed to do these.
I used to be technical. I used to be in IT years ago. Anyway, let's get back on point, right? So the idea that you can automate all of this stuff, which people have been sold this dream, it's just a nonsense. And even if it works now, it's not going to work in the same way, because the AI is being built to defend. People are getting more and more sophisticated, I think. So we need to change the dialogue away from, hey, can I sell to you? And I know you would never say that. It's more of a narrative, isn't it, really? But you've got to move to a narrative, which is, I want to add value to you. And I think there's a couple of points we want to cover off in there, which we're going to do in a minute. But that's the secret to it. Because what we need to do is change a cold call into a warm call, a cold email into a warm email. And what's the difference? Well, a cold call or a cold email, a cold approach, potentially the person you send it to doesn't want it. In fact, almost certainly they don't want what you sent them. Or if you're trying to call them, they don't want to take the call.
Or they don't think that they want it. That's the other thing. They don't think that they want it. They've already got somebody, or you're a pain in their ass. Like, even if they actually would benefit from you, they're not in that mindset.
No, they're not. And I can understand it. If you imagine if you were a busy line manager or senior manager or a TA even, and you've got a job to do and you're working hard, and all you do is get one call after another, basically all the same. They think they're different, the words are the same, but they're all pretty much the same. Gives a job, mate. Or I've got this great candidate, would you like to see them? It's the same thing, really. Or maybe we're really different. That's a classic, isn't it? We're really different to all the others. I used to be in a job years ago where I took calls from agencies. Dear God. Oh, geez,
Same conversation 20 times a day.
Well, you're trying to get some work done. No, it's just important. You're trying to get some work done. So even if you get through, this is the point, even if you get through, if all you've got to say is give us some work, I don't think you're going to get that far, really, to be honest.
No, I don't think so either. Okay. So we've established what the problem is. The world has changed, and we need to move from this sort of selling mentality, and it is internal to us. We need to move from this, I'm going to sell to you, to I'm going to add value to you, to almost prove that I'm worthy of the conversation. How do we do that?
Okay, right. So at the heart of this, and then we're going to spin out from this and explain how you would use it. But at the heart of this process, the thing that's going to work and has worked in the past and will work in the future is you've got to get something which is valuable to the person that you're trying to target. That is it. I'll tell you a story. One of my private clients targets large companies, you know, of above 1,000 employees. And we were talking about content. He says, that won't work for me. He said, because CEOs of 1,000 plus, 10,000 plus employees are not going to read a white paper. And I realized that I'd been misleading him or had not fully explained what I meant. So let me be very clear what I mean by content. Content, a content asset, is anything that your target market, the people you're going for, finds useful, interesting, or thought-provoking, and it's delivered in a medium that they prefer. Okay, so that's it. Now we call it a content asset because that's what it is. Now, the big problem that we face here is that when we work with recruiters, they think something is useful, interesting, or thought-provoking for all sorts of reasons. And it looks good and you think it is, but for some reason their target market is not interested. And therefore it's not content, it's noise. So you have to make sure that your content is going to tick a box with the people that you're targeting. So in his case, he's looking at events and physical in-person events, because if he wins one of these clients, it's a huge amount of money he makes. The stakes are very high. Doesn't win lots, just as well couldn't support them all, I expect. But if he just needs to win a few of these. So it's worth his while running in-person events with people like the people they're targeting, coming together and talking to each other, effectively running a very high level networking event with a nice dinner. People will come to that. Lower down the chain, a hiring manager just might want some help and advice in how to get more of the offers that they make to candidates accepted in a very aggressive market. So, and he might be okay with a webinar for that, or she might be happy to take a white paper, a step-by-step approach, or whatever. You've got to think about, you've got to research the market well enough. Now, there's two ways that you could do that. AI can help you with this. So AI can read lots of things online to see what people are talking about. It can read your posts, and you can put posts out specifically to get feedback. And it can read the feedback and try and figure out whether people are fired up by this subject that you've chosen or not. You can also use a product like Clay, we'll be talking about again, and you can interrogate Clay in such a way that you can find out what's happening. There's something in there that's a trigger, I think they call it a signal actually, a signal which is creating some noise out there that you can then research further. Or my absolute favorite is that when you're talking to clients, then you ask them what they're interested in, what they're worried about, what threats, problems that they've got, any opportunities that they're not really maximizing, anything that they can see coming up, any future threats coming their way. It could be legislation, changing the economy, anything really. And then figure out how you can facilitate an answer for that. So it doesn't have to be you. In fact, probably won't be you. This is a very rare show that we're doing today where I'm sharing my expertise. Normally we get someone in, as you know. So
it's easier to find those people than you think, because social media has made it so obvious when someone is an expert or something, or somebody's really good at it. Or again, you will have a network of people when you go, oh, do you know anybody who's talking about that? And someone will go, oh yeah, talk to Mike Ames. He knows everything about, building a recruitment business. So it's easier than it thinks.
And we're keen to get on those things, So if someone asks me to appear on a podcast, say in the States, where I'm talking to a whole bunch of recruiters, yes, of course I'll make myself available. I'll talk about anything for you. And I won't charge. Of course I won't charge. I'd be delighted to do it. So once you've discovered what the challenge is that people have, then finding a solution isn't that bad. Then you have to think about the format. So you have to think about whether it's written, whether it's, you can do we ran, I was working with a law firm some years ago. We ran some little micro video courses that were very popular on one thing in the law. Physical events, electronic events, white papers, loads of options for you to think about. And then if you want to be absolutely certain, you can go back out and say to your clients, if I wrote something like this, would you read it? If I ran an event around this, would you go? So you can be pretty certain the subject is sound and the way in which you want to deliver it is sound. And of course, one last thing on this, because we're not really talking about content today, but it's so important. If you don't get the content right, nothing else will work in this space. Right? One other thing is that you can syndicate content, which means that you can create content, say, as a webinar. And from the webinar, you can produce a white paper, say, for example, or you can produce maybe a graphic representation in a mind map or a flowchart or something. So it's the same content, but represented in different ways, right? So you can do that, which is always good. So once you've got a piece of content, it means that...
Just one question, Mike, before we move on. The last comment I want to make on this is, I know this may seem like a lot of effort at this point, because you're having all of these conversations, it's taking time. But I want to make 2 points on this. Number one, we're after high value clients here. So even if it says it takes you a week of your time, if you get a client who's your client for 5 years and is giving you lots of money, that is well worth it. And number two is the majority of these things have a life cycle of a couple of years. Some of them, if they're really zeitgeisty, like if you did something about GDPR, for example, shorter life cycle. Most things that you're going to be doing with this will last you a couple of years that you can use in multiple ways. So whilst there is effort, the payoff that you get from this content is huge. And I just want to make that really sure so that no one turns off thinking, I'm not going to do that.
That's a good point, Kirsty, because if you confuse tactical and strategic BD, you'd think I'm not doing all of this to get one vacancy. Well, neither would I, quite frankly. I'd send emails that the AIs would chuck into junk and ring people and not get through. But I think that if you really want to move ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, this is where it's at. And as Kirsty quite rightly says, you're targeting much more valuable clients. And we've got a definition of what a high value client looks like, actually, so you can be very clear what it is. And when you get them, the lifetime value, or LTV, which you should measure for your clients, really, the LTV is going to be high. So it's a no-brainer. In our case, the LTV of clients would be millions and millions of pounds. You know, back in the day, if you're doing small pieces of perm work, $7,000 a pop, not so much, but it's all relative to the other clients that you've got. But it's a very good point, Kirsty. Okay, so let's assume then that we have some content. And those people who are part of our breakthrough program, we have content for you that you can repurpose, stick your name on and use. Okay, so just so that you remember that in case you've forgotten. Now, let me show you the formula for business development success. It is creativity plus persistence plus patience equals BD success. Let me just explain what that means, because again, if you're a transactional recruiter where your times frame is the end of the month, I need to get a vacancy now to work on it so I can get paid next month if I place someone, or the month after, there's a great immediacy in terms of what you do. Plus, you don't need creativity, it's effort. You've got to hit the phones, send the emails out, right? That world is coming to an end. So you can stay in it as long as you like, but you'll get less and less returns from it. This is the new world that you can see on the screen. Creativity means you're creative in terms of the content that you produce, but also, as you'll see in a minute, because we're going to talk about this after the break, then creative in the way in which you deliver this content to the people it's intended for. Persistence, because you don't just try this once, it fails, and you move away. Up to 7 different types of approach you can make. And I'm going to share some with you in a minute or two. Up to 7. And it's that persistence. After a while, even the most hardened of buyers, or hiring managers or decision makers, whoever you're targeting, will recognize that this person comes back with a different approach every time. It's very creative. They don't want to sell to me. They want to add value to me. Eventually, I'll just take the call. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's almost like a reward. You've been very persistent. you've stuck it out, you've been creative in the approaches. Yeah, okay, have your platform. And I've had that more than once in the past, right? What doesn't work is give it one go, doesn't work, on to the next. Good luck with that. No. And patience in that it isn't going to happen in 3 months. Well, it could, but it also could take 13 months or 3 years. If the LTV of the client that you're going for, if the lifetime value for the client that you're going for is high enough, it's worth doing. Okay. Now,
just to reinforce that persistence, you're trying 7 times. That's not happening over 6 months. That is happening over an 18-month period.
18-month period. Yeah.
Just because otherwise it would be you'll ring it up every.
You can vary this, so you can vary the frequency, and you can vary. You can experiment with it to see what works. You can compress it, see if that works better for you, or you can elongate it, works better for you. But if we don't do this, we can't change the dialogue from "Can I sell to you?" to "Can I help you?" And we do it, "Can I help you?" in several ways, not just one. Okay, right. So should we go to break now?
Yes, I think so. So, Mike, I believe it's time for a message from our sponsor, which we haven't done in quite a while, which is, once again, it's us. Yeah.
Yeah. We used to have a sponsor, and they were lovely, lovely people. Honestly,
they were very lovely people.
And if you need any finance, go to Giant. I've not been paid to say that. You just go to Giant, those guys. But we felt a bit awkward with it, so we stopped doing it. So anyway, look, here's the thing. We had an event booked, an in-person event for the 2nd of October. And for whatever reason, we're not doing that now, but we've already paid for it. So what we are going to do is offer something back. We are going to give something back. We've offered it to our existing clients, and the ones that have wanted it have taken it. Absolutely fine. Many of them are abroad, so they couldn't take it. But the ones in the UK that wanted it have taken it. But now we're offering it to you. It is limited numbers. 21 is the number that we can take in that room that we have. It's already booked, and we already have quite a few people signed up. But it is a recruiter founder workshop. Now, let me tell you why that's important. The single biggest reason that people's businesses don't develop in the way that they want is that they don't work on the business enough. They're locked in the day-to-day. And when you're locked in the day-to-day, nothing changes. Because to change your business, you've got to invest time and headspace to figure out the change and plan it, and then time to implement the changes, and then you've got to go with the next change. That's called working on your business. The vast majority of recruiters, in my experience, do not want work on the business anywhere near enough. So we decided that we would give something to our community, and it's this. Sorry. Can you make that go off? I've just got the cursor in one place. Do you remember when I used to be a pro, Kirst?
I was going to say, what is? Keep on going. Keep going.
Okay. It's a full day session, and it's working on your business, right? And essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to learn what others are doing that work and how they're getting around some of the challenges that we're all facing. Let me say this one thing to you. Nobody is as clever as the collective knowledge of everybody in a room. Nobody is that clever. And we're going to have a collective knowledge which is cleverer than all of you and me, because that's what these groups do. We're going to explore options for 2026. How are we going to deal with AI? How are we going to deal with TAs? How are we going to deal with the economy tanks, which it looks like it is going? What are we going to do? And again, the room will tell us. We're going to work through issues in groups. So we have a lot of work in there. And the big thing for me is that you're getting out of the day-to-day. I'm going to encourage people not even to look at their mobile phones. I think that could be a vain attempt, but I'm going to go for it. I know, but here's the thing as well. The agenda will be set by the group. We are going to see what the group wants to talk about in advance of the day. And if necessary, and if I can, I'll get the odd expert in to talk to us about certain subjects if they're on the agenda, right? Here's the deal then. 2nd of October in Birmingham. So if you don't like Birmingham, too bad. It's in the city.
You should come.
I like it. Yeah, it's in the city. So it's very easy to get to. And it's £75 plus VAT. That basically covers the cost. That's the cost covered. We don't make any profit on that at all. In fact, we lose, obviously, if you include our time. But this is our way of giving back, and it's going to be a great event. If you want a piece of this action, it is first come, first served. And all you need to do is email "I'm in" to mike@flair.co.uk, or you can put "I'm in" the comments. And First come, first served. We will pick them up, and if anybody wants it, they can have it until we hit 21. Right, as you can see, we're obviously not going to get fat on that, but that's not the intention. The intention was to give something back. And if this works, we'll do it more often, because I like the idea of people, especially those that don't have a lot of money, to be able to be part of something which normally would cost 10 times as much.
Also, if you're listening on the podcast or watching a recording of this, then you can also feel free to just message or DM me and Mike on LinkedIn and say I'm in for the event as well.
Yeah, mike@flair.co.uk is,
and that's FLAIR.
Yes. Okay. Shall we go back to the gig then?
Let's come back. So, Mike, let's just think about what we've already spoken about. So we understand why we're talking about this today. The landscape is changing. The world has changed post-COVID and with everything with AI and all that kind of stuff. We've figured out that content is the sort of foundation of what we're going to use in order to reach these really high value clients and well-protected decision makers. However, if I've got the content, let's say I've made a really good piece, I've tested it, people say, I like that, Kirsty. What do I do now? Because I have content and I have these people that I want to speak to. How am I supposed to do that?
Okay, we're going to use our old friend, Ada. Ada is a methodology, really, and you can apply it to anything from writing an email to starting a conversation with a hard-to-reach decision maker. So we need to grab their attention, create some interest, build some desire, and then have a call to action, which is more likely for them to do. It's quite passive for them to do. Okay, so we're going to use that model. So, okay, so we're going to just assume for the case of argument, if I did a cold call, it's going to be intercepted by a gatekeeper who's a person or a machine. So I can't really use cold calls. If I cold email, and if there's any essence of selling in there, then that is going to end up in the junk mail. Let's just assume that. I know it's not 100% the case, but that's the worst case scenario because we can't do that. So what can we do? Well, one thing that we can do is as people drift back into the office, we can send things through the post. Mm-hmm. Now, there are certain rules attached to that. So if you want to get something in front of somebody, if you send it recorded delivery with FedEx apparently, the research tells us, is the one that works the best. The chances are that person will get that package and open it. Okay. We're going to talk about what's in it in a minute. We're grabbing attention at the moment, right? Grabbing attention. So you can send something through. This, if you wanted to send this through, is Ada in a box. You may have seen me do these things before. Have you seen that before?
I have.
Yeah, I know you have.
For those on the podcast, it's a...
Now, I realise you must be very busy in the new role.
It's a video card.
It's as short as possible. I don't know about you, but it seems... Right.
I guarantee. Sent through the post.
I guarantee if you send that through the post, someone will open it and think, what the heck is this, right? Obviously, we've still got the interest and desire part to think about in a minute, but that will certainly grab attention, 100%, right? You can get an introduction. So if you've got a shared contact, if you've got a shared first contact between you and the person you're targeting, it's quite a big deal to ask someone to do an introduction so that you can say, can I sell to you? Would you like to buy candidates from me or something? Versus, these guys have got this great asset and I really love it and I think you might like it too. It's a completely different conversation. And the outcomes, because we've measured them, are completely different. It's much more successful to get an introduction based around an asset, a piece of content, than it is to try and get an introduction and talk, well, what they assume is going to be a pitch, right? So I think you can do introductions. You can advertise on LinkedIn. Again, if you've got a great asset, particularly events. And we run webinars we got one coming up, haven't we, soon, Kirsty? I think, which we'll be advertising soon. You'll love it. I won't spoil the fun and talk about that now, but we can advertise, and we will for that. And sometimes 25 to 30% of the people that come to those webinars, we didn't know who they were. They came through advertising on LinkedIn because we can target specifically those people. Now, if we targeted coaching services, I suspect it would be, like a tumbleweed, boom, coming across the, nothing, zip at all. But because it's an event that they're interested in, it's been designed for them. It's been researched so that some of those people are going to think, yeah, I want some of that. You get a much greater response. So we're grabbing attention, creating interest now as well, a little bit, because of the content we're talking about it. You can use LinkedIn. If you're connected, then it's easy because you can just send a message or an audio message to them, which works quite well. If you're not, then you can try an in-mail. There's a big difference between an in-mail, which is a pitch, and an in-mail, which is offering something of value. So there are quite a few ways that you can do this to get the awareness of the content that you have across to somebody and begin to create interest. Now, the interest part is you talk about the problem or the challenge or the opportunity or whatever it is that this piece of content helps people to achieve. So you might talk about the problem and then refer back to a little taster of the solution, a little taster. And then
you never make the noise again.
Yeah, I do that to my grandchildren. They love it. They don't, do they? No. Anyway,
no one does.
You just led me astray there, Kirsty. Right?
Sorry.
But okay, but that this you're creating interest now. So if you're working, so just going back to what I said earlier, there is a problem now because there's too many jobs for the really good people out there, and the really good people are having a choice. How can you make your offer of a job much more attractive than your competitors? We've done the research on this. We've spoken to 200 candidates, and we found out what they look for and what they hate. If you change the way in which you make the offer to tick those boxes, more of those people will say, yes, I'll go with them. For example, right? And then you give them an example of one of the things that you found. And if you'd like the rest of them, we've got a report. Would you like it? Now, here's the thing with content, the big mistake that people make. They send the content. No, that's no point doing that, is there? Where does that get us? They got the content. We haven't got anything. All right. So what you have to do is create their interest with a sample, with a little teaser of it, and then explain to them how they can get it. Right now, there are lots of things you can do here. When we design these particular connection campaigns for people, we try different things out to see what works with the market, because it varies from one thing or another. But very often you can just say, well, look, if you'd like it, let me know. They reply back and say, I like it. Okay, well, I'll give you a ring and I'll sort out how to get it. It can be that overt. Or you can send it, or you could, in the past, doesn't always work now for various reasons, you can arrange to meet to hand it over. I'm coming to the city. I'll be passing the offices. I'll call in, come on down. You can do that. You've got to think about what your audience will stand. You've got to think about where they're located. Increasingly, our clients are abroad, so we can't do that. Or it can be in an event, which I think is relatively easy. You were talking about this off air, weren't you, Kirsty? What to do in an event. If you're running a webinar, so let me take a step back on this, right? Podcasts are not really content because we don't know who's listening to the content. We're giving it away for free. We don't know who they are. We can't interact because of that. It puts the word on the streets. That's great. But how many podcasts do you listen to? Say thank you very much and move on. Because in my case, all of them. I'm not interested in engaging with any of them. I don't care really. So I just want the content and I'm off. That's how people treat podcasts these days. So if you do one, brilliant. It's not going to do any harm. Carry on. If you don't do one, don't bother, right? We want an event like a webinar or a live stream like this, so we can get to know who people are and we can spot a pattern if people are buying into the stuff that we do. Because then they're more likely.
You also say you're basically having a conversation over multiple interactions. You're always looking for them to positively respond in a way which is, yes, I'd like that, or to ask a question, or to say, or sometimes even as slow as you would say something like, if you don't want me to do something, say it. And then they don't say it. So you're, okay, that's still an interact. So you're always looking for them to be involved in the conversation, the sales conversation.
The term is self-selection, right? That's the term. So we want people to self-select, because the majority of people you go out with either aren't interested in the stuff or can't be asked to say, yeah, send me that, or I'll be interested in talking to you about it, or whatever. Fair enough, but we're not interested. We're only targeting high value clients anyway. So we only need a few to come in. If you look at your business, probably 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients. We just need a couple more 20%ers to have a massive impact on the revenues in the business. This is not about hunting vacancies. This is about clients where the vacancies come afterwards. It's a different ball game completely. Thinking has to be different. If you think in the way of a transactional business developer, you will not succeed in this. I'll tell you that right now. You won't. You have to think as a relationship builder with a high value client where you've got something to offer that they will value, but you need to talk to them about it and they don't want to talk. So that's what all of this is about, really. So again, I haven't got time to go into the detail, but Kirsty's quite right. I mean, you can put, I'm going to give you a ring unless you tell me not to. We use that a lot. They don't, so you ring up. Now, if you get through to an automated Apple machine, or if you get through to a gatekeeper, you've got some grasp to be able to say, yeah, we've been corresponding about this, whatever it is. I asked if he or she would like to see a copy of it and suggested I could give you a call, or we're running an event and I wanted to see if it was right for them to come. Would you just check to see if they do want to speak to me? Now, it's a very brave, I mean, the machine will just put that into a message and send it to them, and they can decide if they press answer or not. With a person, it's a very brave gatekeeper that says, no, I'm not going to ask. You're not being asked to be put through. You just want her or him to check whether it's that Mike Ames who's talking about that thing that he sent you.
It might just be a quick Teams message, or they might fob you off a little bit, but they probably will check.
Yeah, and don't forget, this is the first iteration. There'll be 6 others, right? So, and they don't have to be around complex pieces of content. The first one could be just a straight introduction if you want, or it could be offering a great candidate. You could start small, because a great candidate is an asset in a market where there aren't enough great candidates. It's just that the chances of it succeeding are less. Give it a go, though. Why not? And then you're working up to these more sophisticated things. And perhaps the last one that you do is this. And of course, the message on this has to be absolutely bang on. It will get read, right? People will start to watch it. Read, what am I saying? People will start to watch it, but the message has to be absolutely spot on. Because if it isn't, it's, well, that's really interesting, close, it goes in the bin or whatever. We did, I'll just very quickly tell you, we did a campaign for a client in New York. They were targeting a particular company in New York. And it was a company with a lot of buyers in it, like hundreds of them. We were targeting 40. And we got a call from somebody that we hadn't sent the video card to, and in the end, this ended up with a $600,000 deal. It's a software products company. But it turned out that someone had watched this and it had been passed around the office, and this person had picked it up, watched it, and thought, that's for me. So very powerful, but if you don't get the message right, not going to work. So
we've had a comment, Mike, and I just want to bring this up because I think it's sort of linked. So Gavin has said, the target organization can't be too big if you're sending things through the post, because then the secretary, who is also the gatekeeper, obviously, will open it. And I wanted your sort of thoughts on that, because if the message is right, does it still go through?
That's very true. That is very true. However, if it's recorded delivery, private and confidential written on it, and it's in a FedEx package, the chances of it getting through go up significantly, right? Significantly. My PA, for example, Melanie, who we all know can be fearsome.
Yeah.
Those people who try to reach me when she doesn't want me to speak to them don't get through. She wouldn't open a package that had private and confidential and was delivered by FedEx. She just wouldn't. Right? That some would, and that's fine. But again, if the message is strong enough, it's the kind of thing that you wouldn't just throw away, especially because the message on there has to be bespoke. So, hi, Gavin. Mike Ames here. Hey, how's life at whatever it is? Well, you wouldn't do that. I think I could do a bit better than that on the day. But clearly, it's been designed for them. And so it is quite a brave PA that throws that away. But of course, it will happen. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Mike, very briefly, I know we sort of have touched on this already, but I just want to put it out again. So I have created a piece of content. I then have a list of targets of people that I know are high value and are people that I think if I work with, the lifetime value is going to be sweet. I love it. So I've created this piece of content. I've then used either the post to send them this at the beginning, the teaser of the conversation. I've teased them on LinkedIn by either direct message or advertising. I've asked for an introduction, perhaps, or maybe I've even done all of those things and tried a very warm call or whatever it might be. They have reciprocated, right? They have engaged with me around this piece of content. They've said, yes, I want it. I like it. It sounds like it's relating to my problem and stuff. So you've done that. I still haven't got money from them, right?
No,
I still don't have a sale. So how am I supposed to go from, hey, great piece of content to, will you work with me? Because I'm not going to lie, if that were me and someone did that to me and then immediately after I got value from them went, hey, do you want to give me some work? I'd be pissy, to say the least.
Okay, let me answer that because I know we're running out of time. So it largely depends on the asset that you use. So and how patient you are. So if it's an event, a physical event, well, that's easy because you're there talking to them, right? What you need is you creating a bridge between content and sales. It's a bridge, it's called a bridge. So we need to create a bridge, and that bridge will vary. And you have to have a number of options for it. But one bridge, say for an event, is there's still a feeling, it's nowhere near as strong as it used to be, a reciprocity. So you do something, and the bigger the thing that you do, the more there's likely to be a feeling of reciprocity. And all you're saying is, look, in exchange for this, all I want is 10 minutes of your time, not to pitch. I promise I'm not going to pitch, which you're not. I'm just going to explain what we do and leave it with you. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to explain our flavor. That's the term we use now, our flavor of recruitment. And if you like it, if it's to your liking, then maybe at some point in the future we'll trade. Maybe we won't, but that's not the point of it. We're not looking to get a vacancy. We just want to explain what we do. Would you be okay with that? And many times, if the content's strong enough, people just say, yeah, okay. Not everybody, but it's a numbers game. You can do the same thing with a webinar. If you, at the end of the webinar, say, well, okay, I'm going to ring round, and you can either be direct about this. I would like the opportunity. I'm not going to do it now, but I would like the opportunity to just explain what we do and how we do it. So I'm going to give you a call. I promise it won't be a pitch, yada, yada. If you don't want me to, put no thanks in the chat, and I won't call you. No point calling someone that doesn't want to be called. Or you can do a little pitch at the end of a webinar, which is absolutely fine, and say, I'm going to ring you all just to talk about this, to answer any questions you've got. Again, if you don't want me to, just put no thanks in the chat. So there's ways that you can bridge between the two. If it's a written piece of content, then again, it depends how you're delivering it. If you deliver it in person, it's not a big deal. But the other thing to remember is it is about creativity and persistence. So maybe on the first time you connect, you don't do anything, you just add value. Leave it at that. Maybe the second time you add value. Maybe the third time you say, well, now what I'd like to do, we've been speaking for a long time. What I'd like to do at some point is have a few minutes of your time to explain our flavor of recruitment. Would that be okay with you? So you're not asking to do it now. It's called a double ask. It's really powerful. So you're just saying, could I ask in the future? And they say, yeah. So you ring back in 6 weeks and say, well, I'd like that opportunity now, and just to put some time in the diary to talk you through. So you've got to be prepared to try different things depending on the content and the way in which you're delivering your content. But it's not that difficult to do. And the better the content, the more likely they are to say yes.
Okay. All right. That makes sense to me. Okay. So we have come now towards the end of the show. And in a second, Mike, we've covered a lot today, but I'm going to come to you for the top tip. But before then, let's talk about next week's show, which I will make, or next time's show, which I will make for on a Tuesday. We're talking about the birth of $1 million recruitment firm.
Yeah, Camp Jennings is actually a person. I think his name's Campbell, actually. He lives in Alabama. And he started a firm, went from $0 to $1 million in a year. And I think that's quite remarkable. That's even more remarkable than anything I ever produced. So nowhere near that much money. And he's going to come on and he's going to share how he did that. A really nice guy. If anybody has watched Ted Lasso, right, it's Ted. The accent is exactly the same. It's just amusing, really. So he's a great guy. So he's coming on the show to talk to us about that.
Very excited about that. And that is very impressive. And that will be on a Tuesday. Also, just before we move on to the top tip, Martin at the beginning of the show regarding my whoopsie said, Pete would never have made that mistake. And nothing has hurt me more than that comment, Martin.
Did that cut you deep? Cut you real deep?
That's real deep. I'm going to think about that for weeks. And Pete can never see this episode because he will find out. So, yeah. Okay. So, Mike, we've spoken a lot today. We've sort of covered why the world has changed, AI, automation, that kind of thing. We've talked about how content is really the root of this whole sort of way of connecting with people. We've talked about various ways that you can do it, and we've talked about how you can move the conversation from directly after a piece of content through to the sort of more salesy talk. Out of everything today that we've discussed, what would you say is your top tip? People are watching this, they want to get through to well-protected decision makers. What should they do?
Well, there are lots of choices I could have had on this one. I'm a big believer in AI automation, but not when it reaches the target. So I don't think you should automate that. But there's some things you can do around AI. There's some things about exploring products like clay. But I'm going to go for something real simple and straightforward. I'm going to go just get you one piece of content, because without that, it's really hard to do any of this. And on the basis that the old ways of doing BD are becoming less and less effective and will continue to do so, you ain't got a lot of choice, really. So think about that great piece of content. Begin to talk to your clients to find out what's going to be interesting, useful, thought-provoking, and then begin to think of ways that you could deliver that to them, and then really move forward from there. But without that, it's really hard to do anything, to be honest.
Okay, all right. So, end of the show. I want to say thank you to everybody who's watched, particularly after the snafu. And I want to say thank you to Mike for sharing so much of this today. A lot of value has been added today. So thank you, Mike, for today.
It's great. And, I wish I could have been here yesterday when it was scheduled, but I couldn't. So I'm here today, though. So
that's never been mentioned today.
See if he wants it to be the Pete Ames show as opposed to the Kirsty Ames show.
We're going to end this because it's upsetting me. This very dark time, that Pete might be better at something than me. I refuse to accept it. So
show some backbone. Yeah.
Once again, thank you to everyone who's watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
We will indeed.